Hi, Charmain. So excited to have you. You are a Forbes 30 under 30. You're a female founder, and you have an interesting story around how you bootstrapped your company to where you are today as a serial founder. And so I'm excited to share your story today. Charmaine, please introduce yourself professionally to everybody here.
Hi everyone, I'm Charmain. I'm the founder and CEO of QuickDesk. So what we do at QuickDesk is really using the blend of education and technology to really help businesses, sales professionals, marketing professionals to drive more sales.
Awesome, Charmaine. So, how did you first start becoming a founder? Like, when did the entrepreneurial bug first bite you?
The entrepreneur bite me when I was 14 years old. So when I was 14, thankfully I was in a school whereby we could actually, like, every class in my school became a company, and we were selling, like, I'm not sure if you guys know, like, design technology, D&T, and like home econs product. So I was a home econs rep, and I got the opportunity to really be sort of like that, like CEO of that little project. But it really got me excited. Like, oh wow, we could like make a quiche and like sell $800 in like 30 minutes. So after that, straight away I came home. I told my dad, I was like, "Hey, daddy, I want to sell cheesecake. I'll make money." My dad was like against it, but I guess since then, the fire of entrepreneurship has started.
Oh, wow, amazing. And what's interesting is that, we've talked about a little bit was that, you went to university and very quickly you actually started uh, building your first business, actually. Could you share more about your first company that you built?
Yeah, so I guess I caught the entrepreneur bug when I was 14, and then when I went to uni, I guess I've always been very inspired by like entrepreneurs speaking on stage, and I was like, one day I want to be like them. So when I was 20 years old, I remember running a entrepreneurship boot camp in Sweden. So I was part of this program called NUS Overseas College, and in that program itself, I actually spoke to this 17-year-old boy, and I said, "Hey, what are you doing now?" And he said, "Oh, I'm running a mobile apps company. We are making about 1 million a year." I was like, "Wow, you're 17, you're making 1 million a year." Then that bug came back and said like, "Hey, if he's running his business at 17, what are you waiting for?" So when I turned 21 that year, I said, like, I'm becoming an adult. I need to do something different. Just then I couldn't use my iPhone and my iPad out in the cold. Couldn't find a solution around it. I said, "Hey, what about building like a glove that can allow you to use your iPhone, your iPad out in the cold?" So it started as an idea. I went to sell to all my friends in Sweden. It's like, "Hey guys, it's minus 20 degrees Celsius. It's really like cool, right? Like, isn't it very challenging to swipe your phone with your nose? There should be a better solution. I have a solution for you guys. What about having like these gloves that is conductive, that you can still use your phone while you're out in the cold?" And many of them were very intrigued and excited by the idea, and they said like, "Okay, if you build it, I'll buy from you." So with the vote of confidence, I decided to start a business. What I did was I flew straight to Turkey, which had a textile fair, and I said, "Hey, I went to talk to all the manufacturers to learn about textiles." And then I got my friends to join me in this project, be it in design, manufacturing, just to make these gloves come alive. So starting out in 21, I started East Gloves, which is winter gloves for touchscreen devices.
Wait, you got to tell me, how old were you again here?
Like
Like,
today,
no, not
or
today,
when
back then. You were like, you said 18?
21.
21 then, when you first
Yeah.
started that.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, and then you flew to Turkey just to do that because you were inspired by this 17-year-old. Okay, that's kind of bonkers a little bit because I guess at 21, I wasn't doing any of that. Um, and what was it like, flying out to Turkey to learn textiles and all this stuff? What was it like, building out this first venture on your own?
It was quite, I mean, since today's podcast is called Brave Podcast, right? So actually, that was quite crazy. Like, I remember meeting a few Singaporeans in Turkey, and they're like, "Are you here alone?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm here alone. What's wrong?" "It's so dangerous, Charmaine." I was like, "I think I'm fine. I'm quite protected. Like, I think God is protecting me." But I guess the experience that was crazy, as you said, the word bongers, it's really like I went to textile fairs and I had to pretend to be this like, oh, I manufacture like apparel. I'd like to learn more about your yarns, your threads, and I had none. I was just a student. I was literally like smoking my way through, right? So there was a lot of fear in me. I was like, what if anybody catch my bluff? Yeah. But I played along and just carry on because I only had one objective, right? Within that 3 days of trade fair, I need to learn everything of textiles, from yarns making to weaving to knitting to like ensuring that by the time I end the trade fair, I've learned enough to know how to build my own gloves.
So you pretty much started this when you were a junior, right? In college?
Junior, that's like
Third year,
uni,
you
third year
third
uni.
year, right? At uni, right? Yeah. Okay. So what's it like being a student founder, I guess, while you're doing classes on one side and then you're like one of the few bonkers people? Because back in 2000 wasn't that popular to be a founder as well, because I remember that time, there's very few people who were out trying to be a founder as well. It's pretty uncool. So I'm just kind of curious how that felt.
I guess when I was in NUS Overseas College, I would say that I'm very blessed. My cohort, there's 10 of us. Out of 10 of us, 8 became entrepreneurs. So
I see. So
actually,
within this subgroup, it was cool, at least.
yeah. It's like the majority is entrepreneurs, right? I think now, about 6 or 7 are still entrepreneurs. So it didn't felt like I was the oddball. And also the second thing was, but the moment I came back to Singapore, I did felt out of place for a while. For a while, because what I did then was so at that year I was very blessed. N House started, NOC House in NUS. So I said I signed up for it and said I will stay in N House. So most people there are entrepreneurial. So like conversations were really around like, oh, I want to run this business. How do I go about running it? So it didn't felt like I was alone in this journey. But when I go to school, like, so I'm a statistics major. When I go to school, I was like, oh no, I'm like 1 year behind everyone. And I don't have any close friends to study with anymore. So that part was quite awkward and I couldn't relate, right? So in my mind then, but the interesting thing was this, I became a full-time entrepreneur, part-time students, but my grades got better because I just became super focused to make sure I score my grades and keep the promise to my parents to get a degree. Yeah.
I like that. And so there you are, and obviously you're focused on building out and you get it out to market and you distribute it. But at some point, you decide to, make a decision to transition from textiles, right, to enterprise SaaS, right? So what was that transition like for you? Because, a lot of founders, obviously, they start as student founders and they say, there's so much, and then they make a decision to build something else, right? So what was that transition like for you?
Mm, Actually, the transition was not like huge. I guess so. The thankful thing, I think there were a few like gratefulness. It's so because I was juggling school and like entrepreneurship, uh, and that was my final year, right? So I wrote into the dean and I said like, hey, I cannot complete in half a year. Can you let me complete in 1 year? So I split my 6 modules into 2 semesters. So I only had to complete 3 modules per semester. So that was okay. The only challenging part at that point in time was the fact that gloves is our international product. What it means is that I manufacture in China, so I follow China time zone for manufacturing. I sell to like America, like North America, North Europe, and like countries, and I literally had like no sleep because it's like the course are all in different time zone, and then I had to study and go for exams, right? So I guess the transition was really knowing how to manage my time across different time zones. And the learning lesson was really, so my health got affected. I became very unproductive. Um, and I guess like in a sense that there was this one day I went to like a TCM and the TCM said, hey Charmain, you're like 22, but your body is like 40 years old. Like you got to wake up your idea and do something about it. Yeah, so I guess really learning how to manage my time and therefore my health was something I need to learn about.
Right. And there you are, and you keep pushing on for the next, basically 3 years, right? Building up. And so at some point you decided to build up to a certain point, and then you decided to say, okay, I want to do my next big thing, right? Whatever that is. which is starting the beginnings of where you are today at QuickDesk. So what was that? Ending one chapter, starting a new chapter. What was that like? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess for me, so what was really interesting was that, like, when I had the opportunity to start something different. So how it came about was my first company was venture backed, and I think I'm very thankful for having a VC who has an entrepreneurial mindset. So my investor was Leslie from Red Dot Ventures, and he's also an entrepreneur before. So when he invested in entrepreneurs, he always understood like what it means to be an entrepreneur. And so he at that year they were asking me to study all the technology in like A-Star and see what technology I could like build a product from. And I guess like I told Leslie straight, right? I said, hey, I'm a kind of person whereby it's very hard for you to give me a technology and I build a product out of it. It's easier for me to build a product out of a problem I believe in. So I cannot buy that method, right? Like I need to be convinced and I need to, and it needs to be a problem that is significant enough for me to want to solve it. And so because of that, I couldn't find so the problem then I found, and I explored different things, right? I explored building, because you're in the wearable tech space, eye ring, like a similar product to iWatch, because like all the wearable tech sexy stuff. But for me, I realized that it's not about the sexiness of a product that matter. It's about the problem that I want to solve. So there were three significant turning points. First was when I look back and I asked myself, hey, I've been running startup for 3 years now, right? If there was one thing that I would like to do differently, what would that be? And the answer was sales. Because honestly speaking, I think East Glove wouldn't have to end if our sales numbers were good. We could have evolved to something else. But simply because the sales numbers were not good enough, we had to evolve and pivot. That was the first thing. The second thing that I look around me, so there's always this one theory, right? Out of 10 startups, 9 die. And I own eyes. So we were incubated in an entrepreneurship space. So you have different startups in this little bungalow. Every quarter you see startups leaving, right? And then I keep wondering, like, what is that one reason why all these startups are leaving? Like, why can't they stay? Like, why are they not surviving? And when I dig deeper, I realized the fundamental thing was none of them are really focusing on revenue. And if you do not have enough revenue, it's very hard to move on. So I said, hey, sales and revenue is so important. Now, the third thing that came about with me was this. East Gloves was a company that was seasonal. So we could only make sales every summer, because summer is the period where B2B buy for winter. So there are a lot of months, right, where you don't have money, and then there are months you make money. But I was like, a business cannot be like that. It's very unsustainable. So I need a product that it's resistant to any seasons, right? And also something that I do not want to rewind back again and restart. Like I just want to keep a business that I can keep going forward with. So because of these three things, I said, hey, the biggest problem and the most significant thing is actually sales. So the whole idea was, how do I build a platform to really help businesses drive sales? So the first idea that came about was online sales training in 2013. Because I always believe in education lah. Like I always ask, like, I mean, I did ask a few people in uni. I was like, hey, school teach marketing, school teach branding, school teach consulting. Why sales school don't teach sales? Like, very funny, right? Like, and sales is such an important life skill and like professional skill. So I said, okay, what about doing an online sales training program that allows for that? But I was just too early in the market. Nobody's going to pay for online sales training in 2013. And that's when, but I think the mission has always been the same, which is how do I use the blend of education and technology to drive sales. So then the opportunity came to build a telemarketing system with do not call this screening agent integrated within it. And that's how I kickstarted QuickDesk, our product QuickDesk.
Amazing. And there you are, entering this second venture with those three learnings that you had, right? Which is like, let's not build a company that's seasonal. Let's build something that everybody wants. Let's build something that has a better shot at success in that sense than what you see out there, and very focused on revenue. And as you started building out this second company, which is where you're at now, QuickDesk, what would you say are some things that you learned along the way? Because this is also a very different industry, right? Which is enterprise SaaS, right? So it's very different from textiles and turkey and seasonal. So what were some things that you learned along the way personally?
Yeah, I think the first thing that um okay, so I would say that the first thing that I've learned, it's really okay, I think if I look back, there are three significant points that really happened. The most impressionable one was in 2018 when the company almost collapsed. And if there's one thing that I've learned, and I always, if anybody on my setup, I always tell them this, right? Which is never ever forget the why you started in the first place, and never ever like go back on your principles, right? I when I first started, like you hear my origin story, it's really all about helping businesses to drive more sales. But along the way, when we became very aggressive in sales, the way I motivate my sales team is that okay, whatever that brings in the sale, just take it, right? But it's not about, not everybody is meant to be sold to. Like there are some people that are just not a right fit. But to me, I will figure a way out to like make it a right fit. And that was because I was so like absorbed into the whole idea, just keep making more money. Uh, so I guess the learning lesson was really not to sacrifice that and go back to the basic fundamental principles, which is like we started this business because we wanted to value add to help businesses to drive sales with technology and help those that we believe we can help. Yeah. So that's one. Second thing, it's really about um, faith. I would say faith, because I can tell you there were a lot of times I really wanted to give up because tech was this like monster to me. And it's such a monster because when I sem one, we had, because I'm a statistics major, so we had to learn like Java. And Java was such a like crazy thing, like it's binary, right? 1010. My brain thinks in very creative mode. And it's like, why is it so abstract? Why is it so logical? Like I can't deal with it. And then we're supposed to be a minesweeper. And I was so fearful of this like program. My friends, I will never run a software company. Now, so how did I end up in software, right? Was really because I wanted a product that is a lot more agile, because I didn't like hardware business in the sense that I need to throw inventory sometimes, or like I need to discard things. But software business, you can constantly innovate and constantly be agile. So whenever I felt very hopeless, I feel very helpless, I fear the tech, I realize things don't progress. I just get into this like circular loop. It's like, oh, the fear just circulates itself. So therefore, I think if there's any learning thing, is just keep believing that you can learn it. Like, do not lose hope that you can learn it. And yeah, so somehow or another, over time, I just learned it lah. Yeah, so that's faith. And then the third thing I say it's very significant. It's really knowing, being okay to not be okay. I know it sounds very profound here, but like there are a lot of times I'm not okay, but I'm also afraid of being vulnerable to my team, right? And they feel it. And sometimes they told me, I have a very close colleague of mine who say, Charmain, what you say versus what you feel versus what you do, a bit different, right? I never really understood until like later in the years. I realized that what she meant is that I'm not very aligned. So these days, if I'm not okay about something, I'm just very open and talk about it. Like, hey, we are facing this challenge. We are facing this problem. Let's solve it together. And an entrepreneur don't have to think that like the problem is your own. We can solve it as a team. Yeah. So I guess these were the three key takeaways.
And what's interesting is that, while you're doing all these, reflections, you're also helping lots of other companies with their own sales, and revenue challenges as well, right? And obviously you see a lot of them struggling, you see a lot of them doing well. How do you think about partnering or helping them with their own journey as well, from your perspective?
You mean the other entrepreneurs that are also my clients?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, so I have changed my sales strategy a lot. And back in 2016, 2017, we have been very like transactional sales, which is like, hey, if you have a CRM, do you need a CRM? It's better to have a CRM than Excel spreadsheet. Take my CRM, right? But now the approach is very different. It's like, hey, can you please tell me a bit more about your business model? What do you sell? What are your sales and marketing processes like? It's very consultative. And I think how I train my sales guys is also know your clients first before selling to them. It's not, and the best sales is not by selling to them, it's by seeing how you can help them. Now, by saying this itself, what we actually do a lot of times is when we start asking these questions, like what's your process, what's the products you sell, what are some of the challenges you face, we start deep diving into understanding their business struggles. Some of them became very good friends of mine, whereby I don't only journey with them in like having them take up my solution, but also like journeying with them in their whole like entrepreneurial or business leadership journey. Yeah, and that came about actually first from this whole fact finding phase in our sales process. Yeah, so how do I help them? I think there's three things. Those who became friends, I sometimes become their cheerleader. Like once in a while, I'm like, hey, how are you? You know, like let's catch up, or really just giving them a verse, a quote to cheer them up. Or there are those, of course, from a very professional angle, I will give them solutions as to, hey, you know, like our other clients have benefited from this in this way. You want to consider it. Yeah, so it's and I in one thing that I always tell my guys about what QuickDesk DNA is that we are a collaborative sales solution. Don't see our clients as our clients. They are actually people partnering with us on a journey. Yeah.
And there you are, doing all of this, and obviously you're seeing a lot of reflections around sales, both good and bad. What would you say differentiates, better versus worse sales, from your perspective now that you see, from your own perspective, which you're kind of talking about, but also from your clients?
Yeah. So I mean, maybe my own. I mean, I can't share about others, but like experience and my own reflections. So I would say that my own reflections, it's really when I first started sales. I mean, when we started becoming quite crazy in like really driving a lot of sales, what to me success was just bringing more money, like revenue, right? But today, the metric I track is no longer just like the revenue per client, but the lifetime value per client. Because I realized what is more important for sales is actually keeping the customer. So the question I have now when I ask a customer and stick up a customer is, how sustainable is it? And how scalable is this? Like, can I scale with this customer or not? So even in qualifying, I look for growth-oriented kind of businesses. Those can grow with them. Now, therefore, if I'll put the flip side, right? What is sales that don't work? Sales, not say sales that don't work, but sales that maybe I will not like follow after is pure opportunistic sales. Meaning that they just see the very short term, like, hey, I think you need this now, I just promote to you, but I don't really care for you in the long run. Yeah. Or the kind of salespeople that sometimes I will be a bit more not aligned with, it's salespeople who just think about the commissions without thinking about how they can value add to the customer. In the past, I'm like, yeah, I know it's great, they make a lot of money in the short run. But when you really think deeper, right, actually they may be rich now, they may not be rich for the long run because they will lose customer. Like, as long as we are not constantly value adding, we will lose them. Yeah. So, and there was one talk that I went to in 2019 that really like, there's this one learning that it hit me really hard, right? So we were playing this thing called the money game. The event is called Money and You. And in the money game, it shared about one thing. Any money made without value adding is like stealing. It was a really big statement because it's like, it's true. If you really want to make money, make it with the right values and really value add. That's the whole purpose of currency, right? Yeah, exchange of value.
Awesome. I love that phrase. Sales without value add is stealing. Awesome. Love that. So starting to turn the page here a little bit here is, could you share with us a time that you have been brave?
A time that I have been brave. So many. I don't even know which one to talk about. I guess maybe, is it okay if I share more than one? Okay. Yeah. I guess starting East Gloves itself was already a very brave journey because I had zero textile experience. And I think the first story that is like the most impressionable was the story when I found my first co-founder. So I had to manufacture the gloves, and I can't speak Chinese. I mean, after after school for a very long time, not speaking Chinese. I can't speak Chinese, like just really bad. It's like rojak. So I had to find somebody who was working in China to do the like Chinese speaking to the suppliers and manufacturers. So I remembered there was this once the moment I arrived with him to talk to the manufacturer, I lost my luggage. So I went to China, touched down, lost my luggage. And I had to meet all the factories the very next day. And I was like, shucks, man, I only have my t-shirt and my shorts. Thankfully, I didn't lose my laptop lah. So the only thing I had was laptop. So all I did was, very thankfully, the NUS Overseas College Committee is very good. So all the girls came together and said, okay, Charmain, we piece up your wardrobe for you, So I got a wardrobe in, and I went to speak to the China factories next day without any of my clothes, with all these people's clothes, and more so like without my luggage. And on the back of my head, I know I've lost my luggage, right? But at that point in time, all I could think about is really standing up and being very confident. I'm a small business right now, but I'll grow to be like the giant and the Goliath. Trust me, have faith in me. You should give me the MOQ I need. And like honestly, in the back of my head, I was like, shucks, I'm really selling like paper dragon, but like they really had to believe in me. Yeah, so I guess that's when my first like really test of bravery happened, because I just need to make sure the gloves are manufactured in the quantity we need, because we don't have enough money. I can't do beyond like 500 gloves. Yeah, so that was the first. And I guess for QuickDesk, I always think the most brave part is always the first like starting point. So I had zero tech experience, right? I have zero tech knowledge. I can't code for nuts. I went to like School of Computing. They had this developers program. It's called CS3216, Software Engineering for Students, Computer Science students. So I went there with this online sales training platform. I was like, I'm not going to stand out, right? Because I know nuts about programming. I'm not going to speak their language. What should I do? How do I stand out? So what I did was I printed a name card that has this, it's like a two-sided name card with a shape of a computer, because I want to stand out from the rest, right? So I don't know much. All I did was, my prototype, right, was made using PowerPoint slides. So I used PowerPoint, the squares, and I was like, this is how an online sales training platform is. This is how it will change the world. And this is my name card. We will all be the next computer for everyone. And I was like, yeah, it was quite crazy, because I literally had to come out of my comfort zone and sell myself, sell my idea, and have the developers believe in me. And thankfully, I found God. Yes.
Amazing. And obviously we talk a lot about fear and these like two experiences that you just mentioned over here. And I think at the start of the conversation, you mentioned a big phrase, which is about faith over fear, right? Which is something that is a big part about who you are and about how you're able to push through the fear. Could you share a little bit more about what that means to you?
Yeah. I guess for me, there are a lot of times. So innately, I'm always a very fearful person. I fear failure. I fear rejection. I fear aloneness. I fear not being able to be at my best. And I also suffer from something called the imposter syndrome, which I believe is not uncommon to a lot of entrepreneurs. Like feeling that we're always very small and like nobody, and like low self-esteem, even though the world may say like, hey, Charmain, you're doing great. But honestly speaking, there's really that inner demon in me that sometimes you wish to shut their voice lah, but their voice is just there. So these are all the fears that exist. But faith, and a lot of times when as entrepreneurs, we are building the future, which means we cannot see the things happening now. Like we have no, like you are building things that you cannot see right now, right? They are in the future. Confidence and assurance that whatever you believe in the future will happen. And that's faith. Believe that you can make it happen. So there are many times, I remember the first interview I said, I said more than 80% of the time I wanted to give up. It's only that 20% of the time that I could like talk to myself and say like, just have faith, it'll work out. Yeah. And I mean, I thank God for like my faith in him, and that he really showed me, like God really showed me the path that this is the path for me. And I guess what did it do to me, right? 2013, I drew out a blueprint about like online sales training platform, connecting salespeople, being able to bring salespeople the right online tools, getting them from traditional digital sales, and automating certain like sales processes. And these were all I dreamt about in 2013. And I went to tell a lot of people, and they said, hey, this is like 5 businesses in one. It's impossible to do it. But down the road, 5 years later, it all turned out well, right? I started doing education for digital sales. I'm building automation for communications to drive better sales productivity. And if there's one thing that really led me to where I am today, I don't think I'm smarter than anybody else. Like I personally think I'm very ordinary. But the only thing that makes me a bit different, it's faith and perseverance to push on to make what I cannot see now happen. Yeah. So I think faith is really very important, and belief lah. Like, yeah. So I guess that's something I hope that, the listeners can, whoever who's an entrepreneur wannabe or an entrepreneur who's like, hey, this is just too tough, I want to throw the wet blanket, have faith.
And so let's kind of like bifurcate that, right? So one is like the fear side, which you acknowledge the reality of, and obviously how you push through that, right? So you talk about, like imposter syndrome and kind of like that's the demon that you have. So how common do you think that is? Because, you volunteer of, EO, right? Entrepreneurs Organization, and you also hang out with so many founders since then, right? And I'm also part of, a lot of founder circles as well. So I think it's pretty common as well. So I'm just kind of curious from your take, how common do you think that is, and why?
I guess I can't say for sure how common. Okay, maybe I don't want to be gender specific here, but I feel that imposter syndrome exists a lot more in females than male. Like in my observation. Yeah. But I guess, is it very common? I think it happens in a certain percentage. I wouldn't say like everybody has that. I know of a lot of entrepreneurs who are then confident they can make things happen. It's like, give me this, I'll make it happen, right? But of course, you have this other group like, okay, I'll do my best for you, right? So there's 2 different kind of responses we normally get. Yeah, it's really a mix. I can't say, maybe 50-50. I'm not sure. Yeah, but I guess if there's one thing that I've observed, it's over time people grow out of it. Like even for myself, I grew out of it. Yeah, and even like yesterday, I was giving a talk at Careers Unmasked. And the speakers are like managing director of like Food Panda, Ubisoft, Ubisoft, the one who makes the gaming product, and the minister, right? And then I was thinking to myself like, shucks, why am I here in the first place? Like, I'm so small, they're so big. Oh no, can I siam? Why did I say yes? So all these little inner voices were like going through my head, and I was like, maybe I should tell them I'm sick now, right now, I really wanted to give up. But then you can't give up, right? You already committed to say that I'll be there. So then if I cannot give up, then the only thing I could do is, okay, since I'm here, I better do the best out of what I could to be here for, and do the best I can to make the best positive impact for them. And every minute or every second spent thinking about like I'm too small, that brain cell dies. You cannot so might as well grow the other brain cells that say, hey, I really want to make impact, I really want to value add. Yeah.
And you said that you observe that people grow out of it and that you yourself have grown out of it. So what factors contribute to growing out of it from your perspective?
Okay, I wouldn't, can we grow the grow out of it means being able to manage. I think that's what I mean by grow out of it, right? I think there were a few key highlights that happened. Like when my company almost died, I entered depression, and I really just couldn't deal with a lot of things. And to me, like ending life is an easier option. Yeah, but somehow, and in that whole journey of seeking self and finding myself, and really surrendering in God, I said that I just wanted to do my life the best I could for Him, which is God, and in that whole episode, the few things that stood out was, one was when I went to Myanmar. So I had a dream to build an orphanage. So I took a leap of faith. Okay, that's the third bravery part, right? I just flew straight to Myanmar, knowing that, wanting to help the kids. And during that period of time when I saw that the kids had really nothing, but yet they had so much love and hope, why should I even feel small about myself? Honestly, I think being a Singaporean itself, we are already very blessed, right? We're blessed with the opportunity to start a business, blessed with funding, blessed with good education. And so whenever like the imposter syndrome hit me just like yesterday, I will just have to tell myself like, hey, Charmaine, I'm already very blessed. Like, be thankful. And really every minute spent being negative, which is being like imposter syndrome of me, it's every minute lost from being positive. So choose positive. Yeah. So I guess that's really how I grow out of it, by managing it. And I think like awareness is the first thing. So when those little voice comes in, like, okay, shit, it's here. Then the next voice had to come in and I stopped it.
Choosing positive, right? And like I said, and seeing that, um, like I said, seeing so much love, in Myanmar and the kids, and then seeing that in contrast to your own struggles, right? Um, versus and your struggles, which are very real, right? Because the company is struggling, you were struggling, and then you saw that versus other people's struggle. I mean, that's pretty common, right? Because almost every founder, like you're building something crazy, right? You're building this company that is actively fighting to survive, right? Is right. So it's tough, right? So now that you've also gotten a chance to also hang out with other founders as well who are also going through similar struggles as well. And now that you've gotten a chance to share your journey with them and be supportive with them, and also you're supporting them at EO, right? As well, that structure. Um, how would you recommend, I guess, friends or peers or founders to be supportive to founders who are struggling with their company, either because the company has to wind down, or the company is struggling, or going through a growth time or a crisis? How would you advise people to support founders?
I guess maybe I'll share how I benefited from EO, since you mentioned about EO, right? So EO, like, it's a chapter, I mean, the chapters globally, and I'm part of a forum. So the forum, like, the culture is like a family, that we share our highest highs and our lowest low. And the first thing that we always remind each other is trust and respect, and not just out means like don't judge, right? You could be a listed company, right? You could be like a small company, but we are still human beings. We are still entrepreneurs. We struggle too. And I think not judging it, but always showing our love and care for the other and just being there for them. Everybody needs help differently. Some people need help by listening, some people need help by advice, some people need help by coaching. Everyone is different. But I guess the first thing is, whichever entrepreneurs that are struggling, always find a community that you can find trust, respect for, and you know very clearly that they don't judge you, right? And once that is cleared, be willing to be vulnerable, be willing to dig deep, because a lot of times problems exist, they are simple. There could be a deeper root of problem. So if we want to also be able to help somebody else, I think we need to not just see the surface, or just like, hey, you should do this, you should do that. I think seeking to understand first and seeking to be there is the first fundamental most important thing. And always seek to help from a place of love, which is like, I really care for the person and I really want the best for the person, and because of that, be there. Yeah. And people feel it. Like, I remember I always tell my forum, right? I said, hey, even though yes, faith is important, but they are also a very critical element. Like, every time I'm down, I know they are there, and I know they could be the sounding board. They couldn't give me the answer, but by talking to them itself, sometimes I find the answers myself. Yeah. So, and also like really understanding what's the best way to help that person by understanding their personality.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Charmaine, for sharing so much knowledge and uh, self-awareness, actually, and therefore sharing the reflections that came out of that self-work. I'd love to paraphrase, I think, the three big themes that I got out of this discussion. First of all, thank you so much for sharing how you began as a student founder, as a third year in university, and how you were able to find your tribe. Where you were the majority and felt cool being a founder, and somehow managed to keep that fire going even though you became the minority back in school, and managed to push on to finish academics as well as push on with the company and doing some crazy things like flying off to Turkey and pretending that you were legit, textiles company, building out that glove company, and then using those learnings to then go off to build your second company, which is QuickDesk today, around your learnings around around the kind of company you want to build, and taking those lessons moving forward. The second, of course, thank you so much for, of course, very quickly exhibiting your domain expertise in sales. From both the personal as well as the industry dimension. Obviously, personally, from what you learned about making sure that you sell on a more consultative way, way over time, yet also making sure to also sell on the way where you're targeting the customers that fit your product and that you want to build for them, rather than taking on anybody who would could potentially be a customer. Talk about some other tidbits that you drop, like saying that sales without value add is effectively stealing, as well as some other tips around clients and everything. So some really good sales lessons that you shared. And lastly, I think thank you so much for sharing so much around what I call and what you said at the start of the conversation, which is faith over fear, which is about fighting the inner demon, imposter syndrome, the reluctance to step forward, and putting it all together in terms of how you see not just yourself but also other founders kind of grow and mature over time, uh, uh, because of their own self work, but also due to support and peer groups like EO, as well as friends and family. And also, I think being able to contrast, like you said, I think the beautiful moment out to Myanmar during the company's potential failure, and being able to contrast your own struggle versus the struggle and love of the orphans out there. And I think that's a beautiful moment. And I want to say thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts over the years with everyone today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.